Be aware of. If you pull out your iPhones, I know on the weather app, it actually will show you the air quality index for the day. So you are able to see this whenever you pull out your weather. 0 to 50 is really good. 51 to 100 is moderate. 101 to 150 is unhealthy for sensitive groups, which are people that are usually older or really young or have asthma or breathing conditions already. 151 and 200 is unhealthy. 201 to 300 is very unhealthy. And then 301 to 500 is hazardous. So we usually get somewhere in orange to red during an inversion. I remember one year, probably 3 or 4 years ago, where there was a really big fire in California, and there was another fire burning, and Utah was just covered in smoke, that we got to this purple color. It was wild. So this is something to be aware of, because that is the air we're breathing, and like we learned before, you use more oxygen than you use water and food on a daily basis. And so it's really important to be understanding what is going into our bodies. So we talked about external air conditions. Now we're going to talk about indoor. So there are two that I really want you to focus on. One is asbestos and one is radon, because these are the two that they will ask you about in your AP tests and FRQs. The rest of them are just good to know. So I'm going to go through all of these and kind of explain them, but please focus on asbestos and radon. So asbestos. Asbestos is a cancer-causing substance that we used to put on ceilings. So have you guys ever seen popcorn ceilings before? Raise your hand if you've ever seen popcorn ceilings. They're so ugly. Yes, they are terribly ugly. But there is asbestos in them. So I grew up in a house that was fairly old. My parents still live there because they still live there. And we had popcorn ceilings in every single room of the house. And so when we had to take them off, my parents were wearing big ventilator masks on, and they had to spray the ceiling with water and scrape it off with a palette knife because there was asbestos in it. They didn't want it to become airborne, so they wetted it so it wouldn't become quite as airborne, and then they had their masks on. So asbestos is something that, again, I don't know why we decided it was a good idea to put it in our building materials, but we did, and that was a mistake. Carbon monoxide we already talked about, which is really dangerous gas, makes you suffocate. Next, we have carpets. Somebody remind me, what's something that carpets give off that can affect the atmosphere? Smell. But the smell is also called a what? A VOX, a volatile organic compound, right? So the smell of carpets creates a VOX. Cleaning supplies and chemicals also create VOX. Dust mites and dusts are going to be considered particulates because they are solid. Water damage, anywhere you have water and time, you will get mold. And so mold is really bad right here. Formaldehyde is used in other building materials. It's also what you use to embalm people. Not a great thing. Radon. So radon is one that's kind of interesting because humans do not create radon. Radon is actually something that comes from rocks. So has anybody ever been alive when your parents have bought a house before? Okay, so a couple of you. Have you ever heard of a radon test before? Okay, Elliot's heard of a radon test. What do you know about a radon test?
My old house, the radon level in the soil was 4 times the healthy amount, and so that wasn't good.
Oh yeah.
And, so it was really hard to actually buy the house.
Absolutely. So radon. So let me draw a little picture to the side so you guys can see what's going on. So you have your house, right? So radon only affects houses that have a basement. So if you're like me and your house does not have a basement, radon's not a big deal at all because radon comes from rocks. But if your house does have a basement, so here's the ground, radon comes from rocks and it can seep into your basement. The problem with radon, and this is the question that they will ask you on the test, guaranteed on my test, guaranteed on the AP test, so I would definitely write this down, is radon causes lung cancer. That is the biggest thing about radon, is it causes lung cancer. And so if you're buying a house, they make you do a radon test in the basement, and if there is a large amount of radon, you actually have to install a pump that pumps the radon out of the house and outside so it's not really close to you. So The two main ones from this group are asbestos and radon. Both of them cause cancer. Radon causes lung cancer. Generally not good. So we're going to skip all of this. So indoor air pollution can come from natural sources or human-made sources like we've talked about. We already know that carbon monoxide is super bad for you, and that particulate matter is terrible for you. And like I said before, you don't need to write this down, but radon gas can lead to radon-induced lung cancer, which is the second leading cause of lung cancer in America. Number one being smoking. So smoking causes lung cancer. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer in America. So ways to kind of mitigate indoor air pollution is you have ventilators that can take it out of the air. Other ways that you can mitigate air pollution is by having a vapor recovery nozzle. So go ahead and just, for this last little section of your notes, just put mitigating air pollution or fixing air pollution. We're going to talk about a couple of steps that we can fix air pollution, and then we are done with air pollution. And I just said air pollution like 13 times in a row, so forgive me for that. So one way to mitigate air pollution is by having a vapor recovery nozzle. So like we talked about before, when you fill up your cars at the gas station, the smell of gas is a VOC. And we know that VOCs go into the atmosphere and create photochemical smog. And so what they have created are these little vapor recovery nozzles, which help keep the VOCs and the smell from the gas to get out to the atmosphere. And so this is one way that we can help with reducing the amount of pollutants in the atmosphere. Next, we have catalytic converters. So this is your muffler. Anybody who cuts off their muffler, not only does your car sound dumb, it doesn't sound cool, guys. I'm just going to say that out loud. Cutting off your muffler does not make you sound cool. It makes you sound like you don't have enough money to fix your car. It also releases a lot of pollutants. So a catalytic converter, this is where the exhaust comes out. It goes through the catalytic converter to stop the release of different pollutants. So like it says, a catalytic converter is an air pollutant control device for an internal combustion engine, aka our cars, that converts pollutants and exhaust into less harmful molecules. So it literally does chemistry inside of your car, and it breaks down the pollutants into less harmful chemicals into our atmosphere. So don't cut off your muffler, please. All right. Next, we have dry scrubbers and wet scrubbers. So before you write anything down, wet and dry scrubbers are air pollution control devices that remove particles and or gases from industrial exhaust. So basically, this is only used in industrial sectors. Dry scrubbers are used for acidic gas, while wet scrubbers are used for collecting particulates in gases and single system. If you write nothing else down, write those two lines that I have underlined. So really, dry scrubbers are used for acidic things, whereas wet scrubbers are used for particulates. So dry scrubbers are used for gases, wet scrubbers are used for solids. So the big difference is dry scrubbers do not use water, while wet scrubbers do. So just to kind of make that concise for you guys so you're not writing down a million things. So the idea is that whenever we make energy, there's always going to be pollution. And so we add these wet scrubbers and dry scrubbers in the industrial sector to help mitigate the pollution that is being released from the creation of energy. Okay, as you're done writing this down, I want somebody, so if you have 4 people at your table, make sure one person chooses vapor recovery nozzles, one chooses the catalytic converter, one chooses dry scrubbers, and one chooses wet scrubbers. If you have less than 4 people at your table, go ahead and pick one of those 4 things and describe it in your own words to your table mates, just to review this. So ready, set, go. Jackson, Anthony, let's have you guys come back here with Charlie and Gavin, so there's 4 at this table. Your Prius? I was like, not only is it a Prius, but did you actually have a Prius? That's dope.
It's actually cool. It actually whips. 0 to 60 is like 12 seconds, but...
Really? Dang. That's wild.
Jeez.
You're gonna fall.